do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome into the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X _ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. And of course, you can listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you download wherever you find your apps. And of course, 1430 AM. If you're driving around the Indianapolis area, I'm back. It's been a rough past few days. Been sick. I got to go get a root canal tomorrow. It's brutal. My mouth hurts all the time. But hey, we're here. We're going to work through it. We got a big weekend of football coming up. It's going to be great. Colts open their season at home at Lucas Oil Stadium against the Miami Dolphins. And we're going to learn a lot about the Colts week one, because while I don't think that the Colts are going to be very good, I also don't think that the Miami Dolphins are going to be very good. And I have many, many concerns for the Indianapolis Colts this upcoming season. You know, how good is the offensive line going to be? They're replacing 2 of 5 starters from last year. The secondary's new. It should be better. How good is the linebacking core going to be? How much depth are the Colts going to have on their defensive line? And that is something that I think we're going to learn quite a bit about week one. If the Colts defensive line isn't good against this Miami Dolphins offensive line, we're going to be in for a long season. A very, very long season. Because this Dolphins offensive line shouldn't be very good. If you go through any list of websites and you just type into a nice little Google search, who has, rank the offensive lines in the NFL going into the 2025 season, you will consistently find the Dolphins anywhere from 24th to 28th in the NFL. A large part of that is because the Dolphins left tackle retired 2 months before training camp started. Terron Armstead, played for the Saints for a long time, might be a Hall of Famer. We'll see, but he retired in April. So now the Dolphins are having to throw Patrick Paul, who they drafted 2 years ago in the second round. They are thrusting him in to be their starting left tackle this season. Now, he did start 3 games last year, but this is his first year being the full-time starting left tackle for the Miami Dolphins. This is his first year doing that. And even though he played last year, started 3 games, appeared in 14, he struggled. He was not very good. And that has been one of the biggest issues for the Miami Dolphins under this Mike McDaniel and Chris Grier regime. The offensive line hasn't been good enough to give Tua time to sit in the pocket and to pick defenses apart. If that happens on Sunday, the Miami Dolphins will beat the Indianapolis Colts. Now, the Dolphins did add a couple of pieces to the offensive line. James Daniels, a rookie named Jonah. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, but he's a rookie. Both of those are interior offensive linemen. Sure, those guys might help, but they need more improvement than just that. The offensive line last year with Terron Armstead wasn't very good. Miami running backs were contacted at or behind the line of scrimmage on 50% of their carries last year. That was the 6th highest mark in the NFL. This should be a field day for the Indianapolis Colts defensive line. DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, Leatu Latu, Kwity Paye, Abukum, Tyquan Lewis, all of them. They should have a day against this Miami Dolphins offensive line because it's not very good. And if they struggle, that's going to be a very concerning thing for the Colts going forward because they're not going to play many more teams with an offensive line as bad as or worse than the Miami Dolphins this season. We're also going to learn quite a bit very quickly. I'm talking before the end of the first quarter about the Colts secondary. Xavier Howard, if you look at the Colts' unofficial depth chart, he is projected to be the starter alongside Charvarius Ward. So no Jalen Jones, even though he's healthy. It's going to be Xavier Howard, who played for the Miami Dolphins, and Charvarius Ward. The fact that they're going with Xavier Howard, it's kind of concerning when you throw in the fact that he didn't play last year anywhere. Nobody wanted him. And part of that was because he had some off-the-field issues. But it's going to be Xavier Howard and Charvarius Ward. They're going to have their hands full with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Don't think that needs to be elaborated on a ton, but we're going to find out very quickly if Charvarius Ward is worth the money that Chris Ballard forked up for him this offseason. We're going to find out very quickly if Xavier Howard was worth bringing in as a free agent, even though he didn't play last year. We're going to learn very quickly about this Lou Anarumo defense, because he's going to have to scheme it up against these dudes. Because if you just line it up and play man-to-man, it's probably not going to end very well for you with Waddle and Hill on the perimeter. So we're going to learn a lot about the defense. We're going to learn a lot about the secondary. I'm intrigued to see what the safeties do for the Colts in this game, because obviously when you're playing against the Dolphins and all that speed, you have to find a way to keep the roof on top of the defense. And that's going to come down mainly to Cam Bynum, but obviously also, of course, to Nick Cross as well. I've got faith in Cam Bynum. Everyone says that he's a really good player. He's a really good safety who had, a really good 3 years in Minnesota before coming over to Indianapolis this year. The question is going to be Nick Cross. Nick Cross, I thought last year was very good in his ability to defend the run. But his ability to defend the pass has been a major issue throughout his time as a player here in Indianapolis. So they've got to find a way for Nick Cross to be productive in terms of his passing defense. In terms of the run defense, he'll be fine, but it's the passing defense that is concerning, because obviously it's Tyreek Hill, it's Jalen Waddle. Darren Waller is playing tight end for Miami. He hasn't played in a couple years, but if he's, half as good as he was when he was playing for the Raiders, then he's going to be someone that you have to really care about. So very intrigued to kind of see how this how this Indianapolis Colts defense holds up against a very fast, very speedy Miami Dolphins passing attack. I think that the Dolphins are going to have success throwing the football, which is not the most shocking take ever, right? Whenever you consider the fact that, it's Tyreek Hill, it's Jalen Waddle, it's Tua. But I think that Mike McDaniel is going to make these Colts linebackers cover, and that will be a very big issue for the Colts. They're going to make Zaire Franklin run. I expect to see Jalen Waddle and Malik Washington, another, smaller, faster wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins, Jalen Waddle. I expect them to put a lot of speed in the slot and say, all right, you're either going to have to bring a safety down and cover, or you're going to have to let Zaire Franklin or, Cameron McGrone cover one of these dudes in the slot. One way or the other, I do not like it. That sounds like a terrible idea. Kenny Moore going to have his hands full this week against this Miami Dolphins passing attack. It's going to be brutal. Now, if the Dolphins can run the football on Sunday against the Colts, that is a bad sign. I'm going to run this stat back. Miami Dolphin running backs last year were contacted at or behind the line of scrimmage on 50% of their carries last year, the league's sixth highest mark. This should be a big day for Cameron McGrone and for Zaire Franklin and for whoever else rotates in and out at linebacker for the Indianapolis Colts. It should be a big day, but something tells me that it won't be, because these Indianapolis Colts linebackers aren't very good. And if Devon A-Chain is out here running wild, good luck catching that dude. They also drafted Ollie Gordon out of Oklahoma State, a really good running back in college a couple years ago. Watch out if he's running wild as well. This could be a very problematic day for the Indianapolis Colts defense. So the linebackers, I'm very concerned about. I think that the Dolphins are going to make them cover, and the run defense, I just don't expect it to be very good unless the DeForest Buckners and the Grover Stewarts of the world step up in a big, big way. I'm going to talk to Zach Hicks about all this at 11 o'clock. Now, the Colts offense. I want it to be good really badly. Will it be good, though? I don't know. The most important thing for the Indianapolis Colts this year, in terms of offense, it's the most important thing in every single game that they are going to play this year. Week 1, Week 18, no matter what. They have to be able to run the football. That is, like I said, that is going to be the most important part of every single game that the Colts play all year. Because Daniel Jones isn't winning the game for you. The recipe for the Colts to win this year is going to be very much like last year and 2 years ago. 2 years ago, when the Colts had Gardner Minshew playing quarterback, if Gardner Minshew had to throw the football 30 times, you didn't like your chances of winning that football game. Last year, when it was Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco, if either one of them had to throw the football 30 times, you didn't like your chances at winning that game. It's the same thing with Daniel Jones. He's got to throw the football 20 to 25 times a game. He needs to run the football a little bit, and you got to be able to turn around and hand it off to Jonathan Taylor and DJ Giddens and Tyler Goodson, who was questionable. I don't think he practiced yesterday, but I'm sure he'll be fine and ready to go for week 1. I think that the number for the Colts in terms of rushing yards, they need to be at around 140 rushing yards per game to consistently have a chance to win. Now, that could be tough against the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins had the 8th best run defense in the NFL last year. And they're expecting to be better this year because despite having the 8th best run defense in the NFL last year, when you look at yards allowed per game, they were one of the worst tackling teams in the NFL last year. Or arguably the worst tackling team in the NFL last year. And if you're a Colts fan, you're like, there was a team that tackled worse than the Colts did last year? Yes, the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins, they allowed their opponents to average 3.6 yards post-contact. That was the worst mark in the league last year. So basically, after they would hit a guy, that guy would then pick up 3.5 more yards. That was the average. They were a terrible tackling team last year. Now, that could mean Jonathan Taylor has a really big day on Sunday if the Dolphins continue to be a bad tackling team. Now, their personnel is a little bit different. David Long Jr. isn't there. They bring in Minkah Fitzpatrick. They've got 2 new safeties. So maybe the Dolphins do a better job at tackling this year. But, I mean, look, they didn't change how all, 11 starters from last year. So there are going to be pockets of this Dolphins defense that doesn't tackle well. And that bodes well for the Colts and for Jonathan Taylor, hopefully having a really big day. So hopefully, if the Colts can run the football, they're going to have a chance to win, without a doubt. I am interested to see how the Colts offensive line holds up in pass protection. I think running the football, they'll be fine. When in doubt, they can run it left behind Bernard Ryman and Quentin Nelson. It's the pass protection that's concerning to me. They'll be fine run blocking. The Dolphins were 27th in the NFL in sacks last year. But, and this is a big but, Bradley Chubb, who the Dolphins paid a lot of money, and Jalen Phillips were both hurt for a lot of the year. And when they are both healthy, they are an absolute handful. Now, the Dolphins secondary should be bad. They traded Jalen Ramsey. They're not very good at corner. That's why they went and added Juju Brents. I don't know how much he'll play, but I do think it shows how desperate the Miami Dolphins are. Minkah Fitzpatrick, who's going to be on the back end of the defense, he's obviously a great player at safety. But Storm Duck, great name, by the way, an undrafted free agent last year, yeah, he's starting at corner. Jack Jones, a 4th-round pick in 2022, a guy who played for a bad Raiders secondary last year, was so bad that the Raiders were like, you know what? We're good. We'll see you later, Jack. Now he's going to be the other starting corner in Miami, and then their nickel back, their nickel corner, their Kenny Moore, is going to be Jason Marshall Jr., who was a 6th-round pick this year. Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman Jr., A.D. Mitchell, Josh Downs, all of them should have big days against this Miami Dolphins secondary if the Colts offensive line can hold up in pass protection, because Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips and Zach Sealer all on the same defensive line is a nasty combination. And then the other question is, can Daniel Jones make the throws? I know that the narrative around Daniel Jones is that he is going to be much more consistent than Anthony Richardson is. And that, he can make all the easy throws and all of those things, which I believe to be true. The issue is we haven't seen him do it in an Indianapolis Colts uniform. Say, well, Jonathan, we've barely seen him play. I know. We saw him play in the preseason where he only completed 53% of his passes. So I'm very concerned about Daniel Jones and this passing attack. I'm concerned about how the Colts offensive line is going to hold up against a Dolphins pass rush that should be really good. Didn't even mention Chop Robinson, who had a really good finish to the year last year as a rookie. So if the Colts offensive line can hold up in pass protection, then this Colts passing attack should be fine. And then, of course, will Daniel Jones be able to do all of the easy things? And that's kind of supposed to be the thing. And that's why he's the starter. So I would imagine that he's able to, but we'll see. We'll see. Now, the Dolphins are going to score points on Sunday. It is absolutely going to happen. It's absolutely going to happen. Now, the Colts caught quite a break last year when they beat the Miami Dolphins 16-10. I believe that they played that game here as well. They're not catching that break this year. I'll tell you what that break was and how important it is when we come back in 4 minutes.
If it's in today's sports world, it's here. The real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app or 1430 AM if you're in the Indianapolis area. Zach Hicks is joining the show at 11 to keep talking Colts Dolphins week 1. The Colts caught a bit of a break last year when they played the Dolphins. The Dolphins are, or have been, one of the most injury-riddled teams in the NFL over the past couple of seasons. Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, the Dolphins' two best pass rushers, did not play in that game last year. They're going to play on Sunday. Tua didn't play for the Dolphins against the Colts last year. It was Tyler Huntley and Tim Boyle, because Tyler Huntley got hurt in the middle of the game. Tua's going to play on Sunday. And when Tua plays, the Miami Dolphins always score points. It always happens. I don't expect for the Dolphins defense to be some juggernaut, but I do expect for a healthy Dolphins defense to rush the passer well. And I do expect for a healthy Dolphins offense to score points. Like, yes, the Colts beat the Dolphins last year, but the Dolphins with Tua versus the Dolphins without Tua are two completely different teams. The Colts are going to have to score more than 24 points in order to be able to win this game. Because, look, this Colts defense just isn't going to be good enough to keep the Miami Dolphins offense in check. So for me, this game is going to come down really to four things. Turnovers, because games always come down to that. Doesn't matter how good or bad you are. If the other team throws 2 interceptions, you're probably going to win. So turnovers, penalties, which doesn't make me feel good about the Colts at all because of how rough it was watching, the Colts in the preseason. And then Daniel Jones, can he make the throws? And because I get it, he's supposed to be less erratic and all those things, but I'll believe it when I see it. And finally, can they keep Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips off of Daniel Jones and Chop Robinson and Zach Sealer? I do believe that the Colts are going to find success running the football. I think that's a given. I like the Colts secondary enough to not expect for the Dolphins to run wild and put up 70 points like they did against the Denver Broncos 3 years ago now. But with that being said, this game is going to come down to whether or not the Colts can consistently throw the football. When it's 3rd and 7 in the second, in the third quarter, and the Colts are up by 4, and if they can go, score a touchdown to go up 11, like that would be big. Can Daniel Jones convert that 3rd and 7? My money is on him not converting it personally, but that's what the game is going to come down to. And in that moment, that is what we're going to judge Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard on. It's like, you went with this guy over Anthony Richardson because he can, get the Colts into the right play and check to the right protection and do all of those things. And in those big moments, we're going to see it on full display. And then the question is going to be, is Daniel Jones good enough to make the play that is needed to be made? Once again, I'm going to talk to Zach Hicks at 11 about everything coming up with this Dolphins and Colts matchup. Now, I was supposed to do this yesterday, but I was sick. Every year that I've been doing the show, making it sound like I've been here for forever. So last year, before the season started, I did 3 big kind of bold Colts predictions, and then I did 3 big kind of bold NFL predictions. So I do want to get into those before the season starts. It starts tonight, by the way. I've got bets on bets as well. So my 3 big Colts predictions is that the Colts are going to have a bottom 10 offensive line in terms of pass protection. everyone keeps telling us how great Tanner Bortolini and Max Gonsalves are going to be. Like, oh, these guys, man, they're going to be good. I'm telling you, it's going to be great. And I just don't believe in those guys. Like, there's a reason why when Ryan Kelly got hurt last year, Tanner Bortolini became the starter. And that first game, it was really good, and everyone was really excited. Oh, look at Chris Ballard grabbing a starting center in the 4th round. Watch out. But then the more Tanner Bortolini played, the worse he got, to a point where when he got hurt, they put in Danny Pinter. And then when Tanner Bortolini got healthy, they never put him back in. They kept going with Danny Pinter, and then eventually Ryan Kelly got healthy, and then he took the starting center job back. Matt Gonsalves needed reps so badly that he played in the Colts' final preseason game. He was the only starting offensive lineman who did. I mean, seriously, like I'm not convinced that Matt Gonsalves is going to be the answer at right guard, and I'm certainly not convinced that Tanner Bortolini is going to be the answer at center. And then you get to Braden Smith, who just can't stay healthy. He hasn't played a full season in the last 2 years. In 3 of the last 4 years, he's played 12 games or less. He's only played a full season twice in his career. The guy just can't stay on the field. And when 3/5 of your offensive line is unreliable, whether it's in terms of availability like it is with Braden Smith, or in terms of just talent and production like it is with Tanner Bortolini and Matt Gonsalves, it's hard for me to believe that you're going to have a good offensive line. It's really hard for me to believe that, especially when the Colts had a bottom-tier offensive line last year in terms of pass protection. And that's really what I'm expecting once again this year from this Colts offensive line. And look, everyone's going to tell you how great the offensive line is. I'm telling you right now, it's going to be tough to watch them pass protect on Sunday. I think Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips are going to wreak havoc on that offensive line. And Chad Robinson and Zach Sealer. It's going to be a long day for the Colts up front. Riley Leonard is going to start at least one game this year. It's another one of my big, bold Colts predictions for the year. And this one is not complicated. It is not because I think Riley Leonard is to the Colts what Brock Purdy is to the San Francisco 49ers. I think this is going to happen because Daniel Jones has missed 25% of the starts in his career. He's got a laundry list worth of injuries, multiple neck injuries, multiple sprained ankles, all that kind of stuff. So he's going to miss time. And then do I really need to get into the lengthy injury history of Anthony Richardson? I don't think that I do. We're going to see Riley Leonard start at least one game for the Indianapolis Colts this year, and all the Notre Dame fans will rejoice, and all of the, Colts third string quarterback lovers who went from Sam Ehlinger now to Riley Leonard are going to be over the moon excited to watch him play 1 week, and the Colts will undoubtedly lose that game. I've got another big prediction here. I think Daniel Jones is going to set a career high in passing yards, even though I do think he'll miss a couple of games this season. Gardner Minshew in the year that he played for the Colts threw for more passing yards that year than Daniel Jones has in his entire career. And he wasn't the starter for the full season, right? He missed out on some reps. They were given to Anthony Richardson instead. So even if Daniel Jones doesn't play in every game this year, he can still set a career high in passing yards. I think Shane Steichen is a good head coach. I know that is a very controversial opinion right now, but if you can go 17-17 with Joe Flacco, Gardner Minshew, and Anthony Richardson as your starting quarterbacks, plus a defense that has never ranked better than 28th in total defense, in the last 2 years. If you can go 500 in that situation, then you're definitely not a bad coach. And you might be a good one. You can also make a real argument that Daniel Jones is the best quarterback he's had during his time in Indy. This is the best group of weapons that Shane Steichen has coached during his time in Indy. Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, maybe A.D. Mitchell, if he can just be a little more consistent. Tyler Warren at tight end is definitely the best tight end that Shane Steichen has had. And Dallas Goedert was a really important piece of that Philadelphia Eagles offense when Shane Steichen was in Philly. So he's got the best group of weapons he's had. He's got probably the best quarterback he's had. So I expect for the Colts passing attack to look pretty good this year if the offensive line can give Daniel Jones time. The other reason why I think Daniel Jones will set a career high in passing yards is because the bar is incredibly low. He only has to throw for 3,206 yards. If he does that, then he will set a career high in passing yards for the season. That's not even 200 passing yards a game. If he throws for 195 yards a game, he'll throw for 3,300 yards on the season. I don't think that the Colts are going to be very good. I expect the Colts to be trailing a lot, and that will lead him to setting a career high in passing yards. I toyed with this one a little bit. This is not an official prediction, but I'd like to put it on your radar. Jonathan Taylor runs for less than 1,000 yards this year because he gets hurt. This is just something that I've been kind of thinking about. He's 26 years old now, and this is kind of the point where the majority of running backs start to fall off, and the hits kind of start to stack up a little bit. Jonathan Taylor hasn't exactly been the epitome of health during his time in the league. He's only played a full season once. If you go back to 2022, he only played 11 games. You go back to 2023, he only played in 10 games. I know some of that has to do with his holdout and things of that nature. And then last year, he only played in 14 games. So, the more, as he's kind of been in the league longer and longer, those ankle injuries are kind of starting to stack up. And I'm just kind of waiting on the year where Jonathan Taylor has a bigger injury than just a tweaked ankle, because it's coming at some point. Will it be this year? I certainly hope not, because the Colts are absolutely doomed if that guy doesn't play, in 15 of 17 games this upcoming season. So just want to put that one on your radar. Will it happen? I don't know, but I do think that there's a pretty decent chance that something like that happens. So Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, he's going to join the show coming up at 11. We'll talk about Dolphins, Colts. We'll probably get into some big season predictions for the Colts and for the NFL. I've got 3 big, bold predictions for the NFL this upcoming season. All right, our biggest one last year was the 49ers were going to miss the playoffs. That one hit. And I've got 3 other big ones this season. A lot of these are a little more positive, right? They are. Last year I was pretty negative, right, with that kind of stuff. But this year I'm more positive. I'm also going to give you my official NFL future over under bets. Did really, really well on those last year. So I'm going to give you just a lot of bets to make, a lot of big, bold predictions as we get ready for the start of the NFL season tonight at, I think the game's at 8:30. Can't wait. Cowboys, Eagles. I got a bet on that game. It's going to be awesome. All that is coming your way in 4 minutes.
Weeknights at noon. The Real Jonathan Smith Show. Now, this is Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, hop in the chat to be part of the conversation. Maybe you're watching on X, __ Jonathan Smith, to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. Now, Colts, man, just in the news today for all of the bad reasons. We learned earlier today that Anthony Richardson's agent met with Chris Ballard, and they didn't request a trade, but they talked about one. The Athletic does like a poll every year where they ask a bunch of different questions, one of them being which NFL head coach will get fired first. Shane Steichen led the way in that one, getting 15.5% of the votes, followed by Mike McDaniel of the Miami Dolphins. So, the two guys coaching here in Indy on Sunday, both coaching for their lives. So, going to be a really interesting season for both of these teams. Now, for the upcoming season, 3 big, bold NFL predictions. Did pretty well on these last year. My first one is going to be that the Packers win the NFC. I liked their roster before they added Micah Parsons. Now they address the one area of need that they had. Jordan Love's going to play quarterback. I like Jordan Love. He was hurt for the majority of the year last year. When he's great, he's great. He's had some downturns here and there, but at the same time, the highs are really high. I think this is finally the year that he becomes consistent. Josh Jacobs continues to be a really good running back. They've got a really good wide receiver room. Maybe Matthew Golden turns into a stud. I love their tight ends between Tucker Kraft and Luke Musgrave. The offensive line, a little bit older, still pretty solid. And then defensively, obviously you've got Micah Parsons, one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. Rashawn Gary's a pretty solid on the opposite side. He had 7.5 sacks last year. Bringing in a guy like Parsons should hopefully increase the production of everyone else. At linebacker, Edgerrin Cooper had a pretty good year last year. You look in the secondary, Xavier McKinney led the NFL in interceptions. So they've got really good players at every level. Love the Packers, and I think that they win the NFC. I like the Raiders to make the playoffs. This is the very simple better coach and better quarterback bump. I know the projection for a lot of people this year in terms of the better coach bump is the Patriots. I just think that they're a year away from that. There's just not enough talent. I think they have significantly more talent than the Patriots do. So that's kind of why I like them to be the team that goes from not in the playoffs to in the playoffs. I also just like their schedule. Like they open with the Patriots. The Chargers at home is going to be tough. At the Commanders will be tough. Chicago at home is very winnable. Here in Indy is very winnable. The Titans is a winnable game. At Kansas City is probably a loss. The Jaguars at home is very winnable. At Denver is winnable. The Cowboys at home is winnable. The Browns at home is winnable. At the Chargers will be tough. Denver at home is very winnable. At Philly, that's probably a loss. At Houston is winnable. The Giants at home is winnable. And then the Kansas City Chiefs at home. If the Chiefs are resting dudes, then that game becomes very winnable. And as I said, the talent on the roster as well. They bring in Amari Cooper, who I know is a little bit older, but still, it's a solid player to have. Geno Smith's a good quarterback. Brock Bowers, Ashton Jeanty, a solid offensive line. They're going to be good. Okay, so the Raiders to make the playoffs. And then the final big prediction for the upcoming NFL season, I think that the Buccaneers are going to be the 1 seed in the NFC. And it's not because I think that they're the best team in the NFC. It's strictly a schedule thing in the fact that they play in what is probably the worst division in the NFL. Okay, like that NFC South is awful. Like just give them 4 wins right off the rip against the Panthers and the Saints. Okay, they're at a minimum probably going to split with the Falcons. Okay, so like that's 5 wins right off the rip. And then they play the Texans. That game's winnable. They get the Jets at home. That game's winnable. Philly at home in September is winnable because these northern teams going down to Florida in September, it is always tough on them. Okay, they're at Seattle. That game's winnable. People love the 49ers again this year. When will you guys learn that they are too old and Brock Purdy isn't really that good? So the 49ers at home, very winnable. At the Lions, very winnable. 2 new coordinators. Saints win. Patriots winnable. At the Bills, that game will be tough. At the Chargers, that game will be tough. Cardinals at home is winnable. And then, it's a bunch of divisional games. And then they're at Miami, another very winnable game. So, and then obviously they have talent. Baker Mayfield's coming off the best year of his career. Todd Bowles is a good head coach. They've got pass rushers. They've got excellent receivers. Bucky Irving's one of the best running backs in football. So those are my 3 big predictions for the upcoming year. Okay. Packers win the NFC. Raiders make the playoffs. Buccaneers are the 1 seed in the NFC. Okay. The Colts, going to be a brutal year. I couldn't bring myself to bet their under, though. I didn't feel like waking up every Sunday and rooting against the team that I cover. That just didn't feel right to me. So if I was to bet the Colts over under, I would bet them under 7.5 wins, though. So last year I did over under bets, and they went pretty well. I don't want to brag too much, but they went really, really well last year. And so I'm going to give them to you again this year. I've got 5 that I like. And last year, I think I gave out 3. I know I gave out 2. I know I gave out the Commanders over 7.5 wins. And I gave out the Broncos over 5.5 wins. So this year, I want to start with the Jacksonville Jaguars over 7.5 wins. Okay. That's where I want to start with it, because this is the same logic that I used last year when I bet the Commanders over 7.5 wins. It's about the turnovers. Turnovers in the NFL are a luck stat. They are. Okay. I know that defensive coordinators talk about forcing turnovers and all those things. It's not really how it works. Okay. It's just not. So for Jacksonville, last year they were 29th in the NFL in turnover differential. That is just horrible luck, right? They forced half a turnover a game, which is that's incredibly low. Okay. So Jacksonville over 7.5 wins. That turnover differential should swing more in their favor this upcoming season. So for reference, 2 years ago, the Commanders were last in the NFL in turnover differential. Last year, they were 14th, right? So they jumped, 18 spots. All right. And that paired with Jane Daniels being awesome led to them tripling their win total. I don't need for the Jags to triple their win total. I just need them to double it. They can go 8-9 and this bet hits. Okay. I do think that they'll win more games than that, though. So I really like the Jaguars over 7.5 wins. Probably my favorite bet, future bet that's on the board. I like the Raiders over 7.5 wins at plus 125. I think this is a playoff team. Really good head coach, really good quarterback, a lot of weapons. Are there questions on defense? Yes, but I think that their light schedule is going to allow them to kind of evade some of those issues. There's a world where they lose every divisional game. They go 0-6 in division, and they still get to 8 wins. That's how light their non-division schedule is. Okay, and here's the thing. They're not going to go 0-6 in their own division. That's not going to happen. So I like the Raiders over 7.5 wins, better coach and better quarterback from last year should enable them to do that, right? They won, I believe, 6 games last year, and now you're bringing in Pete Carroll and Geno Smith as opposed to Aiden O'Connell. Come on now. Raiders over 7.5 wins at plus 125. I also like the Steelers over 8.5 wins at plus 105. And look, this is partially a Mike Tomlin bet. Never had a losing season. I chalk that dude up for 9-8 at a minimum every year. And then you look at last year when they went 10-7. Okay, they went 10-7 last year with Russell Wilson, who's not very good at football anymore. Okay, Aaron Rodgers, I would rather have. So there's a slight upgrade at quarterback. I still expect for the defense to be nasty between Joey Porter Jr. and Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay playing corner. Like, I think you have to feel really good about that secondary. I know they lost Minka Fitzpatrick, but I'd rather have a good corner than a good safety, which they upgraded at. Linebacker Patrick Queen's going to continue to be a menace. And then that defensive front between Cameron Hayward and TJ Watt, they're going to continue to get after the passer. So they're going to win games the way that they always have. They're going to run the football, and they're going to play good defense. And Aaron Rodgers is going to make a couple plays a game that are really impressive. So I like the Steelers over 8.5 wins at plus 105. You know we love that plus money. And then obviously the Buccaneers, I have to take their over after telling you that I think that they're going to be the 1 seed in the NFC. Their over-under is only set at 9.5. Like, that is criminally low. And it's minus 105, by the way. Like, I'm telling you, they're going to win 5 games in their division alone. Can they find 5 other wins outside of that? They absolutely can. That schedule is cake. It is absolute cake. Okay, so I love the Buccaneers over 9.5 wins at minus 105. 49ers, I'm going to take them under 10.5 wins. Telling y'all, they're old. That's a very old football team. I am not a believer at all in Brock Purdy, not in the slightest. And so they're starting the year off really banged up. No Ayuk. Juwan Jennings is like the only real proven receiver that they have playing. So I get it. It's Kyle Shanahan, and you're not supposed to bet against that guy. I did it last year. I'm doing it again this year. The 49ers need to just rebuild. That's what needs to happen. Trent Williams, great left tackle. The issue is that dude's like 38 years old now. Okay, he can still play. The issue is if you're 38 years old playing in the NFL, you're probably going to get hurt. That's the reality of it. Okay. Now, week 1 bets, and then we'll get to Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. I am taking the Dolphins plus 1.5 against the Colts. Might as well bet them on the money line. I don't think either one of these teams are good, but early in the year, I like to bet on what I know. I know that the Miami Dolphins are going to score points, and I know that Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb are going to pressure the quarterback. Give me the Dolphins plus 1.5 against the Colts. Bucks minus 2.5 against the Falcons. The Buccaneers are by far the best team in that division. The Falcons defense is going to be terrible. And I didn't see enough from Penix last year to be convinced that he's going to be a stud. So give me the team with the better head coach and the better quarterback. Buccaneers minus 2.5 against the Falcons. Tonight, I got this number early. It's now at 8.5 other places. I got the Eagles minus 7.5 against the Cowboys. They're just so much better. Like, the rosters aren't even comparable. So I'm honestly surprised that the line wasn't higher than what it was. So Eagles minus 7.5. I thought it opened closer to 8.5, which is where it's at now. Which is where it's at now in certain cases. Raiders plus 2.5 on the road against the Patriots. I think that the Patriots are a year away from being good. I just don't think that they have a ton of talent. Like, I know that they added Stephon Diggs. I know everyone loves Mike Vrabel, me included. I just think that they need one more draft to kind of finally reach that point. Matt Campbell is going to start at left tackle. First game as a starter, don't really love it. Max Crosby coming off the edge. Like, that's a really tough first game having to block that dude. So I like the Raiders plus 2.5 on the road against the Patriots. And then I'll take the Seahawks plus 2.5 at home against the 49ers. I just kind of laid it out for you. I don't think that the 49ers are going to be as good as everyone else does. They are super banged up to start the season. When it comes to Seattle, I am not a believer in Sam Darnold. I get it. He had one good year. Now, everyone loves him. But I am a believer in that Seahawks defense. There's a lot of really good players on that defense. Okay, between Kobe Bryant at safety, Reek Woolen at corner, Devon Witherspoon playing nickelback, Byron Murphy playing nose tackle, Leonard Williams can play. Like, there's a lot to like about Seattle's defense. Really like them, plus 2.5 against the 49ers. And now my favorite, not my favorite, maybe my favorite NFL segment of the year before we head to break. Here is your Kirk Cousins bet of the week.
Walk into your trap, take over your trap, was the line he would say. You go into someone else's stadium and you try to assert yourself.
The Kirk Cousins bet of the week. For those unfamiliar, we did this all year last year. Kirk Cousins with that quote, walk in your trap, take over your trap. So we take a road team that is an underdog on the money line. The official Kirk Cousins, walk in your trap, take over your trap. Bet of the week is the Dolphins on the money line on the road against the Colts. I think they come here to Indy and they not pull the upset, because I do think that these teams are pretty even, but I like the Dolphins on the road to take the Colts. If you wanted to do the Raiders on the money line against the Patriots, I'd be all for that as well. The one and only Zach Hicks joins the show when we come back in 4 minutes to talk about Colts versus Dolphins.
do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Hour number 2 here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X _ Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app. If you are watching on X, do yourself a favor. Go follow our current guest, Zach Hicks, at Zach Hicks2 over on the X. Zach, what's going on, man? How are you?
Doing pretty good, man. Ready for football this weekend. Excited to, on Sunday, just devote my entire day to football stuff and get ready for this regular season.
Same. I can't wait. And it all starts tonight. We got Cowboys and Eagles. And then tomorrow night, we got Chiefs and Chargers. And then college football Saturday. And then 1 o'clock, the start of the Colts season, which are you excited or no?
I would say this is probably like the least optimistic I've been going into a Colts season since probably 2019. And we obviously know what happened going into 2019 and why the optimism was low there. But I'm still excited. I get excited for these games. It's new football. It's new data, new information, new just everything, So, even if my optimism is lower this season, I'm still excited to watch football. This is why football will always have me, regardless of how good the team is that I'm covering or watching, because at the end of the day, there's always that slight chance that things could go complete opposite of what you expect. And it could be better than you expect and just more enjoyable than you expect. So you always have to watch just in case. So, yeah, I'm not, again, super optimistic, but it's new football. I'm pumped to watch it. I love the football season, and hopefully the Colts and Daniel Jones can prove a lot of people wrong this year.
I hope you're right. Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts joining the show. I don't know. There's just so many questions that I have about the team, and that to me is what's exciting about Week 1. What do you think we're going to learn about this Colts team in Week 1 against the Dolphins?
Well, I think the biggest thing is we're going to learn a lot about the offense with the Colts. This is an opportunity for Shane Steichen to come out on the right foot against a type of defensive system that typically gives him issues. This coaches that come from that Baltimore Ravens tree or come from that Lou Anarumo tree, or even if you want to go more broad, the Vic Fangio type of tree of defense, where they disguise things pre and post snap and really make things difficult for coaches like Steichen, who are a little bit simplistic in their passing design in terms of just stapling half-field reads on top of each other, working the RPO game, working, again, a lot more simplistic stuff than what you're seeing from true geniuses around the NFL. It is difficult for this type of offense to succeed against these type of defensive coordinators. But this Miami Dolphins team is pretty banged up right now. Their cornerback room is not looking great. And it's Week 1 at home in your Jim Irsay tribute game, essentially. So it's an opportunity to come out here and right that wrong against coordinators that typically give Steichen issue. Show that, hey, maybe all he needed was a veteran quarterback to right this ship, because that's basically what he said when he named Daniel Jones the starter, and come out here and break that curse that has been going on for a long time. So I think that's really just the biggest thing here is, can they right the ship in a lot of ways and prove that they made the right decision at quarterback here in Week 1?
Yeah, and we're going to find out, because, look, if you're going to beat Miami, you're going to have to score points. This isn't going to be a game that they win 21-17. Probably going to have to score at least 28. That's kind of what I'm thinking. So I was thinking about this last night. I think I don't know how to ask the question, so I'll just give you this as an example. I think that the Miami Dolphins offensive line is terrible. If the Colts pass rush doesn't win consistently, and if they're, giving up large chunks on the ground, I'm going to be very concerned about the Colts defensive line this season. Is there another area like that in this game where you're watching, where it's if the Colts have success here, I'm going to feel pretty good about them the rest of the year, or man, if they struggle here, I'm going to be really concerned?
Yeah, there's a couple things I'm watching in terms of just overall developments to start the season. The two biggest ones on defense are, how do I don't want to call them the weak links of the defense, but they're the biggest question marks on the defense, and that's Joe Bocci and Xavier Howard, who are likely to be starters this year for the Colts, or at least going into week 1 here. How do those guys look out there? Because when it comes to a defense, especially in run defense, you're really only as good as your weakest link. You can't have guys freelancing. You can't have your weakest link getting bowled over and not filling his run gap. And I'm especially curious about how Xavier Howard looks in his run fits, because the Miami Dolphins are going to test on the outside when it comes to running the ball. They're going to want a guy like Xavier Howard to come in here and try to fit against the run. And how does that look for him? Is he willing to get in there and mix it up and finish plays in the run game? Or is he going to look like a lot of veteran cornerbacks do, especially veteran corners who have been billed as playmakers in their career, and kind of sit back and let things come to him? And I don't want to say be soft with it, but we see older corners do this quite a bit. So what does he look like in terms of run defense? And then Joe Bocci, can he hold up his end of the bargain in pass coverage and really cover that middle of the field up on defense? And then on offense, I don't think this is going to be as big an indictment on this player, but you obviously want to get off to a good start early in the year. But Matt Gonsalves against a really, really good interior defensive line there in Miami, especially Zach Sealer. Zach Sealer is one of the best, one of the most underrated players in football. I don't think the average fan really understands how good of a player this guy is. And I think the Dolphins are going to try to get him on Gonsalves as much as possible, especially in the run game. And then when they get into passing situations, probably line up Sealer over top of him. So it's not going to be like make or break for Gonsalves. Like, you need to come out here and lock down this fringe top 10 defensive tackle in football to solidify yourself. But how does that matchup look? Does he just look completely overwhelmed and just out of place against Sealer, or does he put up a good fight? That'll say a lot about like where he can go this season as a starting lineman.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about the Colts' upcoming matchup against the Miami Dolphins. I'm glad that you gave Zach Sealer his flowers, because that dude's so good at football. Like, there's a reason why the Dolphins let Wilkins leave and they paid Sealer. Like, there's a reason for that. And I'm glad that you brought up this Dolphins defensive line, because I thought that the Colts caught a huge break last year when they played the Dolphins. And I say that, and everyone immediately jumps to, oh, yeah, well, Tua didn't play. That's the break. And that's obviously was a very important piece of the game last year. But Bradley Chubb didn't play in that game, and neither did Jalen Phillips. Both of those guys are pretty premier pass rushers. How do you expect for the Colts offensive line as a whole to kind of hold up throughout the game?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because I believe Phillips is coming off a couple pretty major injuries in his career. Was it an Achilles last year for Phillips, or an ACL? I'm
pretty sure it was an ACL, but I can find out really quickly.
Okay, if it's an ACL, that's a little less concerning for him. If it was an Achilles, then that's going to be tough for him to come back from within just a calendar year here. I thought he hurt his Achilles as well, though, in the past too. Like, he's had a couple pretty big injuries down there in his legs. So I'm a little cautious to see what his production looks like. Bradley Chubb has also dealt with some injuries, but he's just been a consistent performer in his career. So he's going to be a bit of a threat, especially over top of Braden Smith, who hasn't had the greatest camp. Like, he's been fine, but you want to see him get back to his old self. But yeah, I think this Dolphins defensive line is a bit underrated. I'm not going to say that they're among the best in football, but I mean, heck, I was just giving Zach Sealer his flowers. And if Phillips can get back to what he was looking like 2 years ago before the injuries started to pile up, then this can be like a really good defensive line in the league. And it can be kind of something that propels this defense going forward. So it's going to be a tough test for a Colts offensive line that has 2 new starters coming in, and Braden Smith coming off of everything he's coming off of from last year. Those 3 players, and Bordellini, Gonsalves, and Smith, are going to have to be on top of their game against this Dolphins front that I think, like you said, is pretty underrated.
Jalen Phillips tore his ACL last year, so still concerning, but as you said, definitely not as concerning as coming off of an Achilles tear. I am so excited, I guess, to kind of see how the Colts secondary looks in coverage. More specifically, Nick Cross going into, I think this is year 4. I thought last year in run defense, I thought he was really good. I know he missed some time during training camp with the hip injury, but like, you need safeties to kind of keep the top on this Dolphins offense with Waddle and Hill both kind of running wild. I think people kind of know what to expect from Ward and Bynum. Howard, as you mentioned earlier, a bit of a question mark. What are you kind of hoping to see from Nick Cross in this game?
Yeah, I think a big thing for Nick Cross is going to be coming down in those run fits, because we've talked about it with this Colts defense. They're going to be in nickel a good 90+% of the time this year. So for your run defense not to suffer as a result, your strong safety has to be an excellent run fitter, a guy who's willing to do the dirty work and come down and finish plays, and create some tackles for a loss as well. The Bengals during Von Bell's peak years there had that, and that's why their defense was able to be productive. But as Bell kind of fell off in the later stretch of his career, we saw this Bengals run defense really suffer, along with like their defensive front kind of not developing the way they expected. But you need that strong safety who's willing to mix it up and get his head in there. Again, run defense is an 11-man job. It's not a one-man job. But one of the more important guys is going to be that strong safety fitting on the play side. So, yeah, I mean, Nick Cross is going to be vital in that aspect. And then I think when it comes to the passing game, the Colts are going to have him down in some robber situations. They're going to have him coming into the box, maybe on some dime situations. They're going to have him actually playing some dime linebacker and having Rodney Thomas over the top. So he's going to be vital for taking away that middle of the field on a lot of these passing concepts. And we know the Dolphins, coming from that Shanahan tree with McDaniel there, they like to attack the middle of the field. A lot of play action, a lot of just in-breaking routes. So that strong safety is one of the most important players in coverage. And I think Cross is up for the task as long as, he was still getting good mental reps in these last couple weeks while he was out. As long as he's ready for the task mentally and with his communication, I think he can be a good enough player to take away that middle of the field and really provide a boost this week for the Colts.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about the Dolphins and Colts matchup. Last thing on the game, do the Colts win?
Man, I've never seen them win week one. Like in my time covering,
Yeah.
I've never seen it. And
it's
like,
been a decade, hasn't it?
11 years, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think this is a great opportunity to finally get one. I mean, again, you're going to the season with the most veteran roster Chris Ballard's ever put together, and that doesn't always mean like great things, but they have raised the floor of this team this year by going the veteran quarterback route, by getting guys like Ward and Bynum who are ready to go and provide that boost. And by all accounts, this team has had a good physical offseason. They've been doing a lot of things right, where the Dolphins are coming into this game kind of banged up. Their secondary is not in the best place right now. And there were some reports about them talking about how, physical other teams were in joint practices and stuff, which is a weird sign for an NFL team. Now, I think the Dolphins are going to come out here and throw a good punch early to try to establish that physicality and show that, a lot of those off-season reports were just people talking. But if the Colts can survive that initial punch, I think they have a good chance to win this game. It's just, I made a joke about this on the podcast the other day. It's like their losing streak in Jacksonville. It's not like Jacksonville's been this Patriots dynasty over the course of that. And the same thing could be said for this week one loss thing. Like, it's not like they're going against the Chiefs in week one every single season. They played the 1-15 Jaguars in this stretch in week one and lost. They played so many rough teams that are not that good, and lost in week one just because that's just the way that this has gone. So I can't believe in them beating this curse. I don't know if it's even possible. I'm not a superstitious person, but I've never seen them do it. So it's hard for me to predict it. But I will say, like, they have a lot of things in their corner for this game, especially, again, when you factor in just the emotional aspect of the Jim Irsay tribute game, putting him in the Ring of Honor. Like, they need to win this game. I've never seen them do it, so it's hard for me to predict it.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. Zach, I do a segment during the football season. I usually do it on Fridays, but no show tomorrow. I call it my Kirk Cousins bet of the week, because last year Kirk Cousins made a statement where he basically said that one of his former teammates would say something along the lines of like, walk in your trap, take over your trap. So every week I take an underdog on the money line that's playing on the road. And this week I took the Dolphins. They are my bet.
Yeah.
I just, as you said, 11 straight years. I'm just not convinced that the Colts offense is going to be dynamic enough to beat Miami.
Yeah. And this might be a situation where this Colts team would probably beat this Dolphins team in like November, where the injuries have piled up a little bit. I mean, especially with, Tua's health the last couple of years, that's certainly a factor here. But I think like in November, this Colts defense is going to be in such a better place with communication, with knowing where to be, and just being fully into this Lou Anarumo system. Whereas week 1 is probably the best time to face this defense, where they have talent, but again, they're not really fully into the system yet. So you could probably take advantage of that. And the last team you want to go against is Miami in a dome with a defense that might have some communication issues, and then on top of that, the Colts offense might not be in their peak form, a lot of new guys coming in there. Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Dolphins can have a pretty good chance, especially if they can run the football. Again, I'm still nervous about Xavier Howard and run defense. Like, can this veteran corner fit against the run? So yeah, I mean, the Dolphins certainly have a good shot here as well. It's two fairly evenly matched teams, so either victory wouldn't really shock me this weekend.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. Now I'm going to run a couple or all three of my bold Colts predictions by Zach. I know one of them he's not going to like. The other two, I think he'll be intrigued by. So, Zach, I do this every year, and these are supposed to be bold. Like they are supposed to like teeter on, is Jonathan a crazy person? So please keep that in mind while I'm reading these off. My first one, the one that I think you'll disagree with pretty strongly. I think the Colts are going to finish the year with a bottom 10 offensive line in terms of pass protection. Like I felt like the more, I know we've talked about this a little bit, so I'll try not to elaborate too long. I feel like the more Tanner Bortolini played last year, the worse he got. He gets hurt. Danny Pinter comes in, and they don't go back to Bortolini when Bortolini got healthy. Matt Gonzalez making the move from right tackle to right guard is kind of concerning. Braden Smith, we know the injury history there. I know last year he missed time for a different reason, but I just think that, from center heading over to the right, I just think it's unreliable for different reasons, whether it's talent or availability. What do you think of the potential of the Colts struggling in pass protection this year?
Yeah, I don't think that's terribly crazy. I mean, obviously I'm a bit higher on Bortolini than you are in that regard. And I think the way that I've been kind of contextualizing the reason why they went with Pinter and stuck with Pinter like last season was they wanted that veteran center with Anthony Richardson in that Broncos game. And then when we saw Flacco take back over the starting job, Bortolini got back in the starting lineup. And I think that's they just didn't want to match two young players together on the interior there. So I don't know if that really had much to do with like overall play. I'm pretty high on Bortolini, but I totally agree with the concerns regarding Braden Smith and Matt Gonzalez. I think it's going to take a while. And even then, I think it's going to look a lot like Will Fries in 2022, which is probably like the 30th best guard in football, 35th best guard in football. Like, that's not amazing. It's like an adequate starter at best. Like, it's something that you can survive with as long as the other four are playing well. But my big concern is Braden Smith at right tackle, where we saw the play dip a little bit last season. And then it's just been a lot of injuries the last couple years. And even if Jalen Travis were to get out there, I like Jalen Travis a lot, and I think he's got a bright future. But how ready is a rookie 4th-round tackle to come in there and start multiple games? I'm a bit concerned about that. And then we're not even factoring in, like, heaven forbid, an injury to Nelson or Bernhard Raimann, and this is going to be certainly a bottom 10 offensive line in pass protection. So I do agree that this is certainly within the realm of possibility. I think I'd probably have them, like, my guess is they're going to be in like the top 15 or so, because I think the ball is going to be out really quick, and I think Bortolini is going to be better than expected. But I don't think that's too crazy, because when you have young guys starting and then you have their right tackle situation, there's a wide range of possibilities that could happen with this offensive line. And, preseason, we're all a lot more optimistic than typical. So I don't think that's too crazy as a realistic guess for this season.
Okay. All right. I like it. My next one, Riley Leonard starts at least one game this year for the obvious reasons that Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson have both had their struggles of staying healthy.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, you got to go a little crazier with that one. That one's a little tame for you.
Okay, Jason Bean gets a start this year.
No, too far. I don't even think he's on the practice squad right now.
Oh, jeez.
No, I actually agree with you in the Leonard one. We were revisiting our bold predictions from July on our show yesterday for Locked On Colts, and one of mine was Riley Leonard starts more than one game this year.
Okay.
because of injuries to the guys in front of him. Now, again, because we're a couple days away from the season opener, I want to be a little more optimistic. I want to be more excited about this season. I'm really hoping that doesn't happen just because I want these guys to stay healthy. I want them to be productive, and I want wins this year. But, yeah, it's certainly in the back of my mind. Again, we've talked about this a couple of times. Jones has missed 23% of his career starts, and that's not counting the benchings. I've had a lot of people try to call me out saying, like, most of those were due to benchings. No, most of it's actually due to his ACL injury. And then he's missed 10-plus games due to 2 neck injuries as well. So those are where most of those missed games come from. If I counted games he was benched, it would be in like the 30% for games missed. And then Richardson, not counting his bench games either, it's like 57% of his career starts missed due to injury. So these two guys have been banged up quite a bit in their career, and the Colts like to run their quarterbacks. So Riley Leonard, make sure that we got the jersey ready, we got the helmet ready, because I think that any given Sunday we could see him out there by the end of the game.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, going through bold predictions for the Colts upcoming season. My last one, and this one's not super bold. I could probably beefing this one up a little bit as well. Daniel Jones sets a career high in passing yards, which the bar for that is incredibly low. So let's beefing it up. Daniel Jones throws for 3,700 yards this year.
Okay, didn't he get close to 4,000 as a rookie?
No,
the Giants, wasn't it? No, I thought that was his best year throwing.
His career high in passing yards is 3,205 yards.
Ooh, okay. Maybe it was passing touchdowns as a rookie.
Yeah, he threw 24 his rookie year.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah, I do think he certainly sets the career high as long as he stays healthy this year. 37, I'd say, is in the realm of possibility. I mean, you can look it up while I'm just yapping to hold up time here. But what did Minshew hit in 2023?
3,300. I already knew it. 3,300.
Good.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think he could hit 37 because Minshew did that while not starting like 5 games that year for the Colts, or not starting 4 games that year for the Colts that Richardson started. So if we just put Jones as Minshew and he starts all 17 and stays healthy, I think almost 4,000 is potentially on the table. I think that might be a little bit much for Daniel Jones. He's never been a volume passer. Even going back to his college days, I think the most he threw for in college was like 3,300 as well. Like, he's never been a big volume passer, but I think 37 can be realistic, especially when you factor in the yards after catch ability for Warren, yards after catch for Downs, the occasional play where Pierce will go up and get a 50-50 ball and turn, a 30-yard pass into a 70-yard touchdown. I think there's certainly a possibility for him to I think he certainly can set his career high in passing yards, but hitting like 37, 38, maybe 4,000 if some things bounce the right way, I think it could happen. But again, maybe I'm just riding that optimism high because football is right around the corner. I'm feeling pretty good, just excited about getting new football coming my way. So maybe I'm just kind of riding that high right now.
Yeah, man, if Daniel Jones throws for 4,000 yards this year, then the Colts, that means one of two things to me. That means the Colts either make the playoffs or they lose a bunch of games and he throws for 4,000 yards because they trail a bunch.
Yeah, that means Lou Anarumo's defense looked like the Bengals last year, and they had those stats in the fourth quarter. But yeah, I mean, 4,000 I don't think is a crazy number anymore because of the added game, as well as just, teams have to throw the ball a lot late in games. So if you are kind of a middling team, I don't think that's a crazy number to hit. But yeah, I would say if I had to guess what I think his stats are going to be this year, and for someone who has claimed to be a Daniel Jones hater all off season, I think these are pretty generous stats I'm giving him. But I'd say 3,600 passing yards, 21 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 400 yards rushing with 4 rushing touchdowns and 3 or 4 fumbles. I think that's a pretty decent year for him. Yeah. Is it enough to get the Colts into the playoffs?
Probably not.
Because your defense needs to be better than it was last year in that regard. And we'll see if they can stay healthy and really adapt to this system. But I think that's a fine stat line for him that might get him another shot in the league. It's just maybe not putting them over the top, and not being this great one. But I could see that being a pretty realistic stat line for him because, again, he's not going to have gaudy passing yards or passing touchdowns, but he'll keep the turnovers low and add a little bit of rushing production. So it's going to be some boring football, but hopefully we can win him with some boring football this year.
Joined by Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, talking about the Colts season. I've got two more questions for you. Not related to Sunday or in terms of big predictions, but The Athletic, they do the surveys with all the different people in the NFL. Shane Steichen was voted the most likely head coach to get fired first. What do you kind of make of that?
Yeah, I don't think he gets fired in season, so I'm not sure if he would have been my vote for that because who are some guys who might get fired?
Mike
if
McDaniel.
Brian Dabble, yeah, McDaniel, Brian Dabble, if it starts back. I mean, McDaniel, I think, is probably the biggest one just because Miami's a little bit more aggressive as an ownership group than the Colts are with making moves like that. I mean, Frank Reich's the only Colts coach in history that's been fired midseason, and that was just an owner. Like, that was just Jim in a crazy situation there, like going rogue for a second. Besides that, the Colts typically will let a contract play out and then make a move after the season. They're a mom and pop shop. They run it like a small business. They like to have that cordiality of just like, thank you for all you've done, but we're going to go in a different direction after the year. So I don't think Steichen gets fired mid-season. I think a McDaniel's more likely. A Dabble could be more likely mid-season. And we could even see some crazier ones in here if guys get off the slow start, like Stefanski in Cleveland, if they get off to another really slow start. So I don't think I would have him as the first head coach fired, but I mean, top 5 for sure. I completely agree with that.
This last thing I've got for you. This is something that I've been trying to make sense of. Okay. So, and it's going to sound really weird because it's going to sound like I'm defending Chris Ballard, but the now normal opinion on Chris Ballard is he's not a very good GM. Okay. So I hear people say Chris Ballard is not a good GM. And then like 2 sentences later, I hear them talk about how good this Colts roster is.
Right.
That doesn't make sense. I don't understand it, which I'm probably in the minority of. I think this Colts roster isn't as good as what everyone else does. We're going to find out here pretty soon. But how do people make sense of that?
Yeah, I think the way that I would kind of break it down is like, did you think that like, maybe these are weird examples because one of these guys went to a Super Bowl, but like, did you think like Jeff Fisher was a bad coach, or Norv Turner was a bad coach? Do you think those guys were bad coaches because they were consistently average? I can't call that bad. Maybe it's bad for the state of your franchise, because staying around that middle lane or whatever gets you stuck with those middling draft picks. And then you hit and miss on some draft picks. That's a part of being a general manager. I mean, you look at even the best drafters, like look at the Ravens hit on most of their draft picks, but I mean, they took David Ojabo pretty high and he hasn't really panned out for them. There's some other ones up there for sure. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of a crapshoot when it comes to the draft. I think when you look at Chris Ballard, he's been a perfectly fine general manager for the Colts. And I think if we didn't have what happened with Andrew Luck, we'd be viewing him in a much higher light right now because he would have had a franchise quarterback the whole time. But the truth of the matter is he doesn't. He hasn't had that franchise quarterback since Andrew Luck, and he has swung and missed quite a few times when it comes to getting that next quarterback. So he'll always be defined by his mistakes at quarterback. But if you look at what he's done, like, yeah, he's drafted some positions poorly. He's also drafted other positions extremely well. He's had some blind spots for building a roster, but he's also had some really good hits in terms of building a roster and grabbing free agents and making trades. So I don't know. I'm not going to look back on the Chris Ballard tenure when it eventually does end and say like, this was some awful general manager, one of the worst in football. Has this like tenure gone on too long? For sure. It should have stopped after 2022 and it really shouldn't have gone on as long as it has. But I don't think he's a bad general manager. Sometimes you just need to go in a different direction. I think he's a good talent evaluator. I think when he's aggressive, he makes really good moves in free agency and he identifies areas well. Like when he wants to attack an area in free agency or through trade, he usually gets a pretty good player in here that helps the team. It's just those misses at quarterback and those couple moments of blind spots and passiveness, I guess, have kind of hurt him. But yeah, I think it's a bit revisionist history to call him some terrible general manager. I think he's perfectly fine. It's just sometimes you got to move on from fine and chase greatness. Like he's like the Daniel Jones or the Gardner Minshew of general managers. Like he's fine, he's perfectly fine. But are you winning a Super Bowl with fine? Probably
No.
not. Doesn't mean that he's terrible. It's just like you got to move on eventually.
Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts. What's kind of the plan this season for all the content that you're going to push out? Obviously, Locked On Colts. I know you're going to write as well. You're doing film breakdowns. What's kind of the plan?
Oh yeah, we got a lot planned this year. So over on Locked On Colts, we're gonna have 7 episodes a week, 5 daily episodes Monday through Friday, and then 2 squad shows with Alan Pinkett and Derek Schultz jumping on with me and Jake that are both hour-long shows, Wednesday nights and Sunday nights. The Sunday ones will be right after the game, so you're going to get just our unfiltered, just complete reaction to what's happening. Really fun show coming there. In terms of writing, everything will be on horseshoehuddle.com. A lot of film stuff, a lot of just my analysis and my opinions there. And then I'm adding YouTube breakdowns as well. So my personal YouTube channel, I think it's just Zach Hicks, or yeah, it's like Zach Hicks, I think is all it is. You'll see Colts film breakdowns. I just released one yesterday on Joe Bocci. I think my biggest one is talking about Jonathan Edwards for like 9 minutes. That's all it was breaking down Jonathan Edwards preseason film. People love that one. So yeah, check that out. I'm trying to expand my content a little bit and doing some of those like full-length video breakdowns to kind of add more analysis to it. So really busy season coming up, but I'm excited to get into it, and hopefully it's a season of success, because that'll make the work a lot more rewarding for sure. So hopefully this move for a veteran quarterback makes the Colts a little bit more competitive, and we can drum up some interest a little bit later in the season.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach.
Yep. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Zach Hicks, check him out on X at Zach Hicks2. You can check out his YouTube channel and his writing and all those other things. We went way over on time. When we come back, more thoughts on the Colts playing the Dolphins week 1.
may, one day, be a must-listen for sports enthusiasts.
Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
Uh-oh. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. If you want to head over there and subscribe, maybe you're watching on X__Jonathan Smith to follow me there and watch the show there. You can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app, which you can download wherever you find your apps. And, of course, 1430 AM as well if you're driving around the Indianapolis area. The Colts, week 1 against the Miami Dolphins. It's Sunday at 1 o'clock at Lucas Oil Stadium. I don't really know how the game's going to go. I don't like the Colts. I can tell you that much. But I do think that we're going to learn quite a bit about the Colts in this game. You know, like, it's week 1. Like, everyone thinks that they have an idea of who everybody is, but you obviously don't really find out until the game starts. And the biggest thing for me going into this game is the Colts defensive line. If the Colts defensive line is not good against the Dolphins, it's going to be very concerning for the rest of the season, because this Miami Dolphins offensive line is nothing short of awful. Nothing short of awful. Like, if you go online and you search and you search NFL offensive line rankings 2025, and you read all of the articles like I did last night, you will consistently see the Dolphins ranked somewhere between the 24th and the 28th best offensive lines in the NFL. Terron Armstead retired. He was the Dolphins left tackle. He retired 2 months before training camp started. So now the Dolphins are going to have to start Patrick Paul, who was drafted 55th overall 2 years ago, to replace Terron Armstead. And it doesn't really seem like he's ready to do that. For those of you who don't know, I'm a Miami Dolphin fan at heart. I am. That's just the reality of it. It's a curse. Haven't won a playoff game in my lifetime. I've never seen them win a playoff game. It happened in 2000. I was like 2 months old, so I do not count that. When Patrick Paul played last year, he was not very good. The Miami Dolphins offensive line as a whole last year wasn't very good. Now, they bring in a couple guys, and James Daniels, they're going to have to start a rookie at right guard because Rich Eichenberg, he's not going to play. He's out with an injury, so maybe those guys help. But they need more than just 2 guys to fix that offensive line. Okay, last year, the Dolphins allowed for their running backs to get hit at or behind the line of scrimmage on 50% of their carries last year. That was the league's 6th highest mark. That's not very good. This should be a field day for DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart and Leatu Latu and Kwity Paye and every other guy that rotates in to play on the defensive line for the Indianapolis Colts. It's the reality of it. It should be a field day for them. And if it is not, then you will have great reason to be concerned about this Colts defensive line going forward throughout the rest of the season, because this should be a big day. Should be a big stats day for these guys. Like, we should walk out of the game being like, yep, Leatu Latu, he's going to make that year 2 leap. It's coming. Like, that should be the feeling, and that should be the conversation on X after this game, because this, like I said, this Miami Dolphins offensive line is very simply not very good. It's not. Now, there's other aspects of this Dolphins team that are really good, that give me some pause when it comes to evaluating this game. I'll go over those, and I'll give you my bets for the weekend when we come back in 4 minutes.
Hear that? That's what having fewer hot flashes and night sweats can sound like. Veoza is the #1 prescribed hormone-free treatment FDA approved for moderate to severe.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Thank you for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy Sports Ticket. Well, you can head over there and subscribe, hop in the chat to be part of the conversation. And of course, you can also listen on the Indy Sports Ticket app. You can watch on X __ Jonathan Smith. All that good stuff. So many ways to watch. You don't really have an excuse not to. So, oh, man, very concerned about the Colts defense this week going up against this Miami Dolphins offense. Big, fat, not big, small but fast, very explosive. We're going to learn a lot about the Colts secondary. Can they cover Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill? Can they defend the run while playing in, nickel a lot? That's what Lou Anarumo likes to do. Puts a little bit more speed on the field, but, it's a little more pass-heavy defense. Can they defend the run? All those things, the answer to that question is probably going to be no. The run defense was so bad last year, and I kind of expect for it to be bad again this year. So the question is going to be, because we know that the Dolphins are going to score points, can the Colts kind of match them? Because I don't think that this Dolphins defense is going to be very good either. Like when you look at their secondary, there's a major lack of talent with the exception of Minkah Fitzpatrick, who's a little bit older now. Okay, Storm Duck, who was an undrafted free agent last year, is going to start a corner. A 6th-round pick named Justin Marshall Jr. is going to start at nickelback for the Dolphins. And then Jack Johnson, Justin, something like that. He's their other starting corner. He was a 4th-round pick in 2022, who the Raiders decided to let go of after last year. So not a ton of talent. This should be a defense that the Colts score a bunch of points against. But it's going to come down to the offensive line. Can they protect Daniel Jones? Because while this Dolphins defense isn't very good, their defensive front is between Chop Robinson and Jalen Phillips and Zach Sealer and Bradley Chubb, who the Dolphins gave a bunch of money to a couple years ago. So if they can keep Daniel Jones clean, then I expect for this game to be a shootout. I'm just not convinced that they're going to be able to do that, which leads me to my NFL bets for the weekend. And if I've got time at the end, I'll give you my college football bet for the weekend as well. Now let's start with the futures. I like the Jaguars over 7.5 wins on the year. Did very well with the future bets last year. The two biggest ones obviously being the Commanders over 7.5 wins and the Broncos over 5.5 wins, 6.5 wins, whatever it was. Either way, it cashed. Jaguars over 7.5 wins because turnover luck is a thing, and that luck should swing in their favor this season. Last year, the Jaguars were 29th in the NFL in turnover differential. They only forced half a turnover a game. That's abysmal. So they should be much luckier in that department. That's going to give them more possessions, and football at its heart is a possession game. Usually if you win the turnover battle in the NFL, you usually win games. That's usually how it goes. So give me the Jaguars over 7.5 wins on the season. I like the Raiders over 7.5 wins. Better coach in Pete Carroll, better quarterback in our guy Geno Smith as well. And I mean, like, look, the over-under's 7.5, and they won 4 games last year. I thought they won more games than that. That makes sense. Either way, I do think that this is a team that can double their win total. Wouldn't be surprised if they made the playoffs either. Pete Carroll, significant upgrade at head coach. Geno Smith, significant upgrade at quarterback. Solid players around him. Obviously, Ashton Jeanty is a guy who is supposedly going to be really good this year as a rookie running back. Brock Bowers was really good last year as a rookie tight end. They bring in Amari Cooper, who's older, but still a pretty reliable player. So give me the Raiders over 7.5 wins. I like the Steelers over 8.5 wins. Aaron Rodgers is better than Russell Wilson. Mike Tomlin doesn't go under 500, and that defense I still expect to be pretty good. So Steelers over 8.5 wins on the year. I like the Buccaneers over 9.5 wins. Just an incredibly light schedule because they play in the worst division in the NFL. Like they're going to win at least 5 games in their division this year. If they swept their division, I would not be surprised. And, from there, you only need 4 more wins if they sweep the Panthers, Falcons, and Saints, which all seems very doable. So I just like their schedule. I like Baker Mayfield. I like their head coach. I like the talent at receiver. Buccaneers over 9.5 wins. 49ers under 10.5 wins. Telling you, that team's old. Christian McCaffrey's going to get hurt again. Trent Williams is going to get hurt again. And then it's what you had last year. Brock Bowers looking for Juwan Jennings because Brandon Ayuk isn't playing, which is how it's going to start at the beginning of the year. So there's that with those are my future bets over under win totals for the upcoming season. Now let's get to Sunday / tonight, because I do have a bet going on tonight as well. I'm taking the Dolphins plus 1.5 here in Indy. I don't think either one of these teams are good, but I know that the Dolphins are going to score points, and I'm just not convinced that the Colts are going to have an explosive enough offense to kind of match them. Because even though I do like the Colts secondary this year, I'm not bought into the defense as a whole. So give me the Dolphins plus 1.5 on the road against Indy. I like the Buccaneers to cover the 2.5 points on the road against the Falcons. Buccaneers really good. I get it. Michael Penix Jr. played at Indiana. Don't care. Not convinced that he's going to be awesome quite yet. So give me the Buccaneers minus 2.5 in that game. Tonight, give me the Eagles minus 7.5 against the Cowboys. I thought that line should have opened at like 8.5. If it had been at 9.5, I don't think that I would have been surprised. 7.5 was just too low. That proved to be true. The line has moved to 8.5, so hopefully you got in on that early. That's what I got them at. So the Eagles minus 7.5 tonight. I just think that they're significantly better than what the Cowboys are. Raiders, give me them plus 2.5 on the road against the Patriots. I think the Patriots are a year away from being good. They just don't have a ton of talent. Like I just like the talent in Vegas a little bit more between Bowers and Geno Smith and Amari Cooper and Ashton Jeanty and all those things. When it comes to the Patriots, I like Drake May, but Matt Campbell, he's making his first start. Is it Matt Campbell or Will Campbell? Either way, he's making his first career start at left tackle. He's going to have his hands full dealing with Crosby. So give me the Raiders plus 2.5 in that one. And then finally, I'm going to take the Seahawks plus 2.5 against the Niners. The Niners are just really banged up already. No Brandon Ayuk. I really like this Seahawks defense. Not the biggest believer in Sam Darnold, but I don't think that he's going to have to be great to win this game because I don't think that Brock Purdy is going to be very good. I think he's going to struggle a little bit. And finally, the Kirk Cousins bet of the week For those of you who don't know what the Kirk Cousins bet of the week is, we just take a road team that's an underdog and we take them on the money line because of this great quote from Kirk Cousins.
Walk into your trap, take over your trap. This is the line he would say. You go into someone else's stadium and you try to assert yourself.
Kirk Cousins right there. Walk in your trap, take over your trap. It's such a good line. We did this last year. We're going to get to do it the whole season this year because he said that later in the year last year. So give me the Dolphins for the Kirk Cousins bet of the week to go on the road and beat the Indianapolis Colts in this game. John Buzzard asking a great question. Will the Colts score over 28 points in a game all year? They will. Like when they play the Titans, they might. Maybe they do it this year or this week because I don't think that the Dolphins defense is very good. But that's what's going to have to happen in order for them to avoid losing this game. So give me the Dolphins, though, for the Kirk Cousins bet of the week. Road team, that is an underdog on the money line. The Dolphins are the bet. Now, I have time to give you my college football bet. There's not a ton of great games. There's a couple interesting ones, like Kansas is going to play Missouri. Iowa's going to play Iowa State. But the game of the evening on Saturday is Oklahoma playing against Michigan. Bryce Underwood, his first real test. Everyone raving about him after he tore up New Mexico. I'd like to see him play well against a real team before I jump to the conclusion that he's going to be awesome. I'm taking Oklahoma -5.5 in that game. They're at home. I think Brent Venables is going to make life so difficult on Bryce Underwood. It's his first real road start. Oklahoma, tough place to play, and Oklahoma has a very good defense every year under Brent Venables. The issue has been quarterback. That issue seems to have been solved. John Mateer, he's played a lot of football, good player, so he's supposed to be a dude. We're going to find out Saturday night, but that is my one college football bet for the week. Give me Oklahoma -5.5. Yes, Kirk Cousins is on a team. He's playing for the Falcons. All right, that's going to do it here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show. I am off tomorrow. I have to go get a root canal. I'm not looking forward to it. Good news, though. Dan Dockich is back. He's on from noon to 3 today. Should be back again tomorrow as well. So the Dan Dockich Show comes your way here in about 5 minutes. I will talk to you Monday starting at 10 a.m., reacting to the Colts versus the Dolphins.